Thank you, Meredith. Wonderful. Okay, I have two younger brothers. My mother and father never called me the brilliant one. It was all he eats a lot. And let's see. And then any question? Yeah, if you ask me anything, I'll mainly deflect and say, go talk to OSU. So there you go. Anyway, but okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about soil health, next level, managing soil biology. I'm on this journey. If many of you may have looked into this area, have some experience with this, and I've got a lot, I can learn a lot from you. But that's what I want to share today. Some possible options if you want to go next level, what some other producers are out there doing, and some of the things I'm trying to do at Langston on our research farm area in the area of regenerative agriculture and the soil biology. So my name is Joshua Ringer. You can call me Josh. Assistant Professor of Agronomy, that's Plants and Soils. I'm at the Sherman Lewis School of Agriculture and Applied Sciences. That's Langston University. That's 10 miles east of Guthrie off of I-35 on Highway 33. So Langston University is the 1890 land grant university, and it's so we're part of the land grant system as part of the A&M system. So OSU's the flagship, and then we are the serving the 1892. So we're serving, our 1890, we're serving the historically black communities in Oklahoma. And now we have a mandate for all the different ethnic groups or minority groups in the state of Oklahoma. So I've got students right now. We do elements of soils. I have them out in the lab on our new research farm. It's a horticulture research farm. And so I'm doing some regenerative ag plots. I've only got about 5,000 square feet, but we're doing some interesting things. And the beautiful thing is, what do we do when we construct things in Oklahoma? Most places, we take a bulldozer, we scrape it clean. Whatever topsoil was there from the pasture was there before is now gone, and there's your plot. So that I'm working up from a very base level, dealing with a lot of clays. Okay. My email address, you can find it, but joshua.ringer@langston.edu.
It's also
in the brochure. Yeah, so feel free to email me questions or things you don't agree with, and because it's a great conversation going on in this area. And then I will also have Kelly Atkins from Atkins Farm to share a little bit as we go through this. And at about 30 minutes, I'm going to have Brian stop me, and because I can get long-winded, and then we will have question and answer. So I stop where I stopped, and then the PowerPoint will be available posted, or you email me, and I will email it back to you. Okay? So the thing I like to start off with is, how is our way of the agriculture the best it can be? How do we know what our agricultural system can produce? So I'm just in central Oklahoma, just east of I-35. That the fields that we're doing our research plots in, that was first homesteaded when Langston was platted and all that during the land run. Corn, cotton, maybe some tobacco. It was diversified farms on 160 acres or 80 acres with a farm family, 5 to 6 members on all of those farms, maybe in cattle. So they had cattle, dairy, they maybe had some hogs, they had chickens, okay? But then, 1920, 1930, all these years, we stopped producing cotton, corn, all these older crops, and a lot of it went back to pasture. It was originally those grasslands. So what we look at when we buy a new plot of land, we find that little 5-acre plot of heaven or patch of heaven, it's been pretty degraded from those original times. The soil biology is usually not very robust, and what you've got left is a lot of nutrients have been washed away, a lot of it's been extracted over the years and never returned back, and you've got the colonizer plants, those plants that can survive in that harsh environment. And so one point I'd like to make, though, Thomas Sowell, he's an economist, written a lot. He says, our choices in life are always about trade-offs. So when I talk about next level, how are you going to do that next level thing? You as producer always have to make that trade-off. Am I going to spend more time out here worrying about soil health, or am I going to go spend more time out marketing and finding a higher value market for my products? You've got to make that decision. Now, there are some concerns in our agriculture. I like to pull back and look at this and I'm a crop and soil a certified crop advisor, okay? And so for the last 12 years, I have been to the OSU Winter Crop School up in Stillwater and to all the different meetings that they have about no-till for getting my CEUs, my continuing education. And what you see when you talk with all the crop consultants who make their living mainly in the western part of the state with the big-time ag producers, winter wheat and cattle and such, is this persistent, unchanging price. But all the inputs are increasing: equipment, equipment repair, fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, labor, okay? And all of our land costs are increasing and pushing agriculture production to the least fertile land, okay? So we're in local ag here, and at Langston, I'm not dealing with people with 300, 400 acres. I'm dealing with new and beginning farmers who are like, I've always wanted to farm, I've gardened, but can I farm? Well, okay, you're going to have to be very productive on 1/8 of an acre or 1/2 an acre to get access to land. So we're talking 1/8 of an acre up to about 10 acres. That's what we're dealing with at Langston. That'd be Native American farmers who are trying to farm again on their allotments, their tribal allotments, or if they're heir properties, if you're a historically black community, okay? But all the good land's taken. So you get what you get. You've got to work with the land you've got, okay? And then there's increasing pest and disease resistance to our chemistry solutions, okay? So the whole preface of this, for this talk about soil biology, we don't like to think about it, but we've got millions of bugs in our body. Okay, you hear all this about gut biome and all the you got a lot of bugs on you. Okay, and I know because I'm happy. I've got a little farm. My wife and I do a little hobby farming. Okay, and but you see, my main job is agriculture professor, so you can tell I can't really do it. You guys can actually do it, but my main job's there. But I hobby farm. So we got the rains after 3 years of drought. We finally filled all those ponds back up, but my wife likes to remind me, how do we remember each summer? It's always hot, but last summer was the rattlesnake summer, and this summer, because of the rains, which I know you guys would like some rain, and I'm glad to put up with it, but the seed ticks. This is seed tick summer for me. I've actually probably got some on me right now heading north. Anyway, but the issue we're seeing with our own gut biome is you take a bunch of antibiotics, you're wiping out that gut biome, and to restore your health, you need to replenish that, yogurt, things like that. Okay, so we're understanding that about our own bodies. In the same way, we're beginning to understand much more. We've got to focus on this soil biology. So every time we put our inorganic fertilizer on, heavy nitrogens, it's a benefit for us, but it has some effect on that biology. Just like you take a big dose of antibiotics, it wipes out some things, but it also wipes out some good things. Okay, and why do we control our, worming? We don't just deworm everything, especially with goats. Goats are terrible about that, right? It's because of increasing resistance to our chemistry. The same thing is happening out in western Oklahoma. Used to be, it's like you put as much as you want. If you got your Dow chemical, come on, spray everything you can, right? Well, now you've got the Dow people, and who knows who it is. It's your input supplier begging, please use these carefully at the right seedling height. Why is this? Because their chemistries, they've only got a few left before the resistance is built up so high. This is big ag. This is the thousands of acres farmers. That is a concern internally. And even the chemical companies are, we need to be careful. We're going to lose it. So like no-till, big time no-till, it's helped the state of Oklahoma in our production with wheat. But no-till in Oklahoma in large-scale wheat or canola is, how do you control the weeds? You got to control it with herbicide. Okay, but if you start building up herbicide, we're starting to come where these farmers are complaining at 10 years later saying, Now I had to have a large application of iron, which, that's the plowing again. That's bringing back the tillage. Okay, so there's resistance building. So we're on the right path. We've got to understand the soil biology. And the benefit we have if we're on smaller acreages is you can do a lot more with it. You can maybe, really make the systems have a lot more biology in it because you're at a smaller scale. Okay, so we talked about physical side of soil texture and things like that when Brian was talking about soil health. Alamami talked about the chemical side, getting that right, getting a soil testing. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about the biological, and the aim is to balance all of these. So here's your core principles of soil health. Brian already mentioned them. Maximize presence of living roots. Maximize presence of living roots. So what does that mean? Trying to have something growing in the ground all the time. Minimize disturbance. So you're trying to minimize tillage if you can. Okay? Maximize soil cover. So trying to keep that soil covered. You got heavy clay soils. What's the best thing for clay soils? Whether you're in northern Vietnam or you're in central Oklahoma, cover the soil. And then maximize biodiversity. Okay, so you're like, okay, those are great principles. How do we apply them? And you can see over there on the right, that's a picture coming back from the sandhills down I-35, coming from Kansas City when I was coming home from a trip. That's the burned off sandhills there, okay, with all that area. Fire is natural to our systems here in the grasslands, okay, but when we do that, we lose soil cover, okay, and it blows after that. Okay, so soil texture, what are some of the management practices? You got your clay, silt, and sand. We're not going to go through all of that, but what is the good way to deal with those clay soils? Cover them. Okay, managing soil chemistry, as we recap a little bit of what Alamami talked about was, first thing, manage your pH. So that soil pH, getting it 5.5 to 6.5, depending on your crop. If you guys are growing blueberries, it's a whole different thing. Down in southeast Oklahoma, they say, what about my blueberries? They like 4.5 or so. It's like, and then one of the things was, I get it down to 4.5, put the acidifying in it, and then it comes back up. Well, yes, that's going to happen. You got to keep, because it wasn't natural to those soils and that cation exchange capacity. Okay, macronutrients, you're looking at the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. The secondary, your calcium and magnesium and sulfur. Okay, and then the guy that was doing Seth, who's doing the serious soil. Okay, so he's in the back of the room there. Go talk to him. So his approach is really looking at that balancing of calcium and magnesium. The Albrecht method coming out of, and the lab that you like to use? Logan Labs. Okay, so that is one certain approach. And so I can't push for any certain thing, but if you want to know more about Logan Labs and his approach and how he's using his amendments and what it'll do for you, talk to Seth in the back there. Okay? Micronutrients, iron, magnesium, cobalt, zinc, molybdenum, boron, chlorine, nickel. Okay, so what are the key things on soil biology? Why is it important? Because if you'll see, it's kind of hard from the back. On this left side, you've got a root, and the little root hair is going out. Okay? The relationships that really enable good root growth is that mycorrhizal fungi. So it's fungi that are having a symbiotic relationship with that root. That helps expand your root system. That's the key thing in soil biology. You're trying as much as possible to increase the ability of that root to go get the nutrients it needs. Okay? And then when we look, okay, this is your typical, if you're going through elements of soils in university, there's your nitrogen cycle, all the different pools. Well, guess what changes things on that nitrogen that's coming through there? It's the breakdown of the nitrogen compounds by the different organisms, the microbial organisms, okay? And so that's why they even have products. I think I've got a picture of it here. Products of, hey, you put all this nitrogen on that we sold you. Okay, now you need a nitrogen inhibitor because all the nitrogen you just put down, if it rains too much or whatever, or the heat's a certain way, it's going to start changing something else, flush out of the system, or volatilize out into the atmosphere. Okay, so here's another thing, an amendment you can put on to keep that nitrogen there. Okay?
Sound like a doctor.
Yep, there you go. There you go. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to get right to Kelly here in just a second here. But remember, I want to emphasize this. I'm on this journey with you guys together, okay? But your farm management trade-offs, and what are your experts, okay? You as the farm manager or farm owner must balance the trade-offs. What is your bottom line? Okay? So to me, it depends on your scale. If you're just backyard gardening, you can do some very interesting things. Okay? You can do one of the, pile it as high as you want, but when we're dealing with 2 acres or an acre, you got to scale it up. Then how do you scale it up? Because if you do it all by hand, there's a limit. But what is your bottom line? Are you making the money that you need to? Okay, that's your one indicator as a farm manager. And the second thing, like I always ask when things are mentioned, what do your crops look like? If you got beautiful tomatoes, if you got beautiful crops, okay, you're doing something right. Okay, and so you got to make sure those are happening. Okay, and then with those things, how many soil health practices can you afford to implement? So you've got a trade-off on your time. Where are you putting your time? You've got a trade-off on your resources. Okay, you got a trade-off on what kind of equipment you've got, and then on the opportunity cost. Really should you be messing with this soil health practice? It'll be perfect. Maybe if you can get on the soil health circuit talking, then people will listen to you. But is that going to really help your bottom line? Okay. So who's the expert on your soils? It's you, plus observation. Good farmers walk around, observe things. Trial and error. Just make sure your mistakes don't sink the whole operation. You've got to keep your mistakes small enough you can handle, and then you're building experience. So, Alamami's got 3 years experience down on that soils down in Lawton. Before that, he was up there at Stillwater with Bill Ron. Okay, so that's starting building that experience, even with all his education. Same thing with me. I'm up on the little farm. I'm learning some things, what works, what doesn't work, and the same with that brand new place we've got in Langston. So it's you, observation, trial and error, and experience. Remember the trade-offs. Okay. So this little farm guy right next to Langston there, that thing is bare as can be. All summer long, bare as can be. Beautiful broomweed. The cattle won't eat broomweed up there, and it's like a carpet. Like almost cement. Now, I can judge that from a soil health perspective, and the little agronomy professor that drives by and says, look, that's not good. That producer's having to make some choices, You come look at my place, my fences for my nasty old longhorn cattle are not pretty, okay, but they do what I need them to do with my limited time. So remember, it's the trade-offs you got to decide on. What do you have time for? But that isn't good for the soil, just so you know. Okay, so I want Kelly Atkins, to talk about Atkins Farm Store. I'm going to give her 10 minutes, okay? And she's going to talk about her experience, and then we'll see if there's some things maybe we could do at her farm.
Okay, only have 10 minutes, so. Okay, we have a farm stand at Marlow. Our gardens are on Terry Road, south of Duncan, and we're farming about 15 acres there. We originally were at Stratford for about 30 years, and we moved here a couple years ago. And we thought we found a really nice farm down there and looked great, but there's been a problem that I'm going to refer to, which is one of the reasons I wanted to speak today. Okay, management practices. We do plow the ground, but mostly now my husband uses a chisel. And we do have a big 3-point rototiller that we use to work the ground. That's before we plant, and then after we plant, we have big drive rows between our rows so that we can pick and control weeds. And then we have a small tiller. It's called a Grillo. That's very important. We have used herbicides, but we don't like using them. We try not to, because the herbicides also can affect your plants. It can stunt them, slow them down, cause some problems, and they're very expensive. So we like to do the tilling, and with the big tractor, then he'll till on each side of a row, and we'll use a hoe and quickly cover weeds, because you don't want chop up weeds right next to the plants anyway, because you're going to be damaging roots. So we're just covering real quickly with the hoe. So we're using cultivation for our weed control almost entirely. In the past, we've always planted winter wheat every year on our gardens to add organic matter and to keep the ground covered. We've also had some places that the soil was very tight, and we would actually have our cattle come in and feed in those areas where the wheat was, putting in hay, make sure the hay has not had Grazon sprayed on that area. We'll get to that more again in a moment too. And that would really help with the manure and the hay and the wheat to really help some really tight soil areas. That's what we've done in the past. We've also planted peas. We'd buy whatever the cheapest pea seed we could find to cover areas, and then till that in later, and it's a legume. It's going to put nitrogen in your soil also. We leave all the plant residue, and we till that in too. That works good for us. And we do use inorganic fertilizers because we're doing on a large scale. We do a lot of mulching, and again, be careful where you get your hay from around the plants. That really helps keep the soil cool, cuts down on weeds, and it adds a lot of organic material. On fertilizers, we're cutting costs by not using the herbicides and the safety, and we're eating this stuff too. We don't want to eat that, And fertilizer, we've gone from broadcasting fertilizer to just doing a hand band treatment beside the plants to save on fertilizer because the price has gone up so much. And that was interesting about the phosphorus and potassium. I did mobility and non-mobility. And so we're using less fertilizer that way. And again, talking about the constraints on your fertilizer. You're going to spend that money on that high dollar fertilizer. If you don't get a soil test first and make sure the pH is right, you just drive down the road and throw the money out the window because your fertilizer is not going to do much good if your pH is not right. That soil test is so important. Yeah, very important. So get those soil tests and get the fact sheet that tells you how to do it and do it right. And read what they tell you to do and follow it. Okay. All right. We've been at this farm for 2 years. The first year we farmed in a southern area of the property, did really good, but we planted 2 rows of cantaloupes in this hay meadow on the other side of the creek. And the cantaloupes were mushy inside. And my husband's like, wow, we've done this for 35 years. Never had this problem before. Well, maybe I put the nitrogen down too late, or maybe I put too much. Maybe so. Well, then in February of this year, we did all this planting of spinaches and lettuces and all kinds of the cool season crops you can plant in February. Didn't come up. Planted them again. Didn't come up. This is strange. So we're moving over to the hay meadow area this year because that soil looks so wonderful. Well, it's not so wonderful. The previous owner used a herbicide called Grazon, a Mexican fellow, and he didn't speak good English. We tried to talk to him about it before we bought the property. Did not talk to him well enough. And apparently he sprayed more than he was supposed to, more times than he was supposed to. The residual should already be gone. It is not. We have really failed this year on our garden because of that. But I'm thankful for onions, potatoes, cucumbers that I grew at my house instead of the farm, squash. The squash, the leaves are smaller, but we always plant more than we want. We want to have more than we need. We'd rather throw it away than not have enough, and we wholesale sometimes. So way too much squash, but we're still getting what we need. And then we keep planting. We don't just plant one thing. So, okay, this stuff's not doing good, don't know why. Then we just plant what is doing good and just keep planting. We do multiple plantings. And then as we're researching this and finding what's going on, we now know for sure it's Grazon. The Grazon's job is to not let seeds germinate. That's why all that stuff wouldn't germinate. We planted okra 4 times. Now we know why it wouldn't come up. Then it did come up. Beautiful plants, but the leaves are shaped a little funny. And then it started blooming. Woohoo! Did a video, put it on Facebook. We're fixing to have lots of okra. Nope. As soon as the bloom fell off and the little pods there, it turns yellow, brown, and dies. Because the other job of Grazon is to not let a plant produce seeds. So the cantaloupes that we're known for years, best cantaloupes in the world, our customers say, they'll drive many miles to come get them. The cantaloupe's mushy inside because the chemical is destroying the seeds. So we've still had some cantaloupe production, but we're telling them, if that's not a good cantaloupe, you come back and tell us, we will credit you. Because most of them are good, but not all of them. The watermelons were fine. Thank God my husband planted 8 rows. I was griping at him for planting that many. But we've done really well with the watermelons, the squash, the cucumbers, the onions, the potatoes. Cantaloupe's not good. Peppers, mammoth jalapenos do good in Oklahoma when there's no grazon in the soil. They get huge, like a chili relleno. Now they're this small, and when you cut them open, there's no seed. And on the okra pods, no seed inside. They were hollow. Yeah. And tomatoes, classic herbicide, curling up. But in that area, for some reason, my husband asked me if I prayed over them, and I said, well, I pray over all of it. But they came out of it. The tomatoes came out of it. And in some places, you'll have no problems, and then you'll see a strip. Well, that's probably where he had spray, where he, overlapped possibly with the sprayer possibly. Don't know for sure. But anyway, thank God we got that farm sold. And we found another one, so it's been a blessing in a way. When we tried to buy 3.5 years ago, how am I on my time?
2 more minutes.
Oh, good. Okay. All these marijuana growers were coming in, buying up everything. We moved over here to be close to my husband's folks. Every time, oh, did you sign a contract? Just signed a contract. So we ended up buying this little house that was bad. We remodeled it all. It's lovely now. And then later we found the farm and thought this was great, checked, did a soil test. That doesn't show up in a soil test. Now, if you want to start some plants in some soil, or if you're worried about manure coming from somebody, then you get some of that manure and you grow some little tomato plants in it first. Or you go to wherever you need to go to. Extension will help you, and OSU, on how to find out who is not going to have manure and mulch hay that is affected by grazon. Because if you bring that manure in and that mulch hay, you're going to be putting that chemical in your soil, and there's going to be several things you're not going to be able to grow. Okay. Oh yeah, it is. But in a way, we've still done okay. But we're going to make more money off of real estate selling that house and that farm than we are vegetables. So, it's exact. The place we found now is a house there like we wanted, where we can live right there, and it for sure has had no grazon used on it. Absolutely for sure on this. But people will lie to you, but they didn't lie to us. There's no reason for them to lie. It's supposed to be, they say 3 years, but it's going longer. We're not chancing another year, no way. We were going to rent land elsewhere or plow up our whole 2 acres at our house and grow stuff there because we don't want to chance it again. And we have grown. No, we've had lots of rain. We've had record amounts of rain. We have at our farm. Yeah, we've had lots of rain there, and it's sandy too, so that's. Well, we have had a lot of rain there. Yeah, we've had a lot of rain there.
2 miles
So
south of her, and I about
yeah,
think she's talking
yeah.
about it, and
Okay, I lost my train of thought there. The grazon. What else was I wanting to say about that? Okay, so check out. Be sure where you're getting your manure and your hay from, and really research your land and have a backup plan. Have a backup plan. What are you going to do if something goes wrong? Well, keep planting. Plant the crops that are doing okay. Yeah. Thank God he did. Yeah, it didn't affect the watermelons at all. So, okay.
So,
right.
yeah, and I wanted Kelly we'll make the transition here. Thank you. So I wanted Kelly to share that because Atkins Farm, we ate the produce from that here at the meal, and she's meeting her production goals. She's doing different things, she and her husband, that she needs to. Okay, but how do you make that next step on soil biology? You got to pick and choose. Okay, so Kelly shared that. Now we're going to go on, and remember that is important. This is something that either Langston or OSU could help with. These soil amendments we put on. How long does grazon stay, depending on how much is over applied or not, and other amendments like you get topsoil brought in, and if it's chock full of the nematodes you don't want, you just brought in a big problem. Okay, so managing the soil biology, SARE, these are tillage radishes. I like using those. I've been using them in no-till a lot, but I love tillage radishes, okay? And they're great for the soil, getting a lot of biological matter in, smothering out some other weeds, and they'll go their winter kill when you get that first frost most of the time, and then cattle will also eat them, mustard green there. Okay, but here's an example. You can see industry like Pioneer Seeds, they're using biological solutions. This is the area they're also pushing into, adding these biological solutions. So anything you get adding biology to the soil, you got to make sure there's actually live bugs in it, the bugs you want, the microbes. Okay, and if it's too hot, things like that, sometimes it's all dead, and then you're just putting something that's really dead and not giving you your microbiology. Okay, so what are we going for? Just a reminder again, we're going for those water-stable aggregates. You want your soils to be looking more like that on the right versus the minute it rains and all of it, the structure and the pores in there are destroyed. You want them to be able to hold nutrients and hold more water. As much water as you can keep on your farm, in your soil, that's what you're trying to do. You're not wanting it to all run off, okay? And so what's going on with, this is coming from Cornell University, what's going on with these aggregates? I think Brian mentioned the aggregates, Ali did also, but the macro aggregates, that's where the fungal hyphae, so the fungi are one of the big microbes we're looking for. They help build those macro aggregates, okay? So it's, those clumps that are holding together. And then we go smaller than that, you've got more bacteria, the smaller ones that are helping helping develop those micro aggregates, and then your sub aggregates even smaller than that. All the activity, it's all getting cemented together and held together by all the biological activity that's occurring. And then finally, at the smallest level, you got the clay humus. So clay are the edges of those minerals of all your different clays, and all the humus. So all the organic matter that's then broken down into the humic acids and such. That's where you're holding nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, all your micronutrients. And then you see the water retention pores. So you're trying to get it where it retains that water that you need and the nutrients.
Mr. Ringer?
Yes.
Can I say one thing to kind of put it in perspective?
Sure.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but for every percentage of organic matter that you increase in your soil, you can hold 20,000 gallons of water per acre, approximately. So think of that, just 1% of organic matter, which will take 2 to 5 years depending on how you do it, but you can hold 20,000 more gallons of water per acre.
And this is one of the things we saw at larger scales, no-till farms there in central Oklahoma that have been doing no-till for at least 2 to 3 years. They were getting crops sprout, doing summer, like cowpeas in the summer fallow, and we're still a lot more moisture than the other regular fields, okay? And so, yeah, I think that's a very good point. I appreciate you bringing that up. So, one approach here at Langston, we got a research project trying to look at this issue because we got to have something that works and is affordable for smaller scale farmers. Okay, so we like this soil food web approach. Okay, there's several different approaches, but she's got a great one, and it's soil management from an ecological approach. So you're looking at, as you build up that soil microbiology and it's healthy, then you're getting you're holding more nutrients, and you're getting a steady release and cycling of those nutrients. Every time that bug eats another bug, then it's moving those nutrients within its body, then it dies, finishes its life cycle, and then it's available again for those plants. They say, and we're gonna be doing more research on this, but it's very promising that your crops are more protected against pests and diseases because of these beneficial microorganisms, just like our gut biome. Okay, our water holding capacity is increased, like you mentioned. Our clay soils are naturally flocculated. Now we use gypsum often for this, but actually good microbiology will help cure some of that. And then your soil structure's improved because of all those glues, and your soil carbon increases. Now, soil carbon, you need they're starting to pay farmers for soil carbon. Now, if any of us are less than 200 acres, they're not paying us much. They're nothing at all. We don't even register. But hopefully this will change moving forward. Okay, so what are the benefits? You got better fertility. Now, these are all the claims that are made, so we've got to balance those out. Are we really getting, is it worth the cost, okay, to us? Okay, lower input cost. Reduce pest and disease pressure, increase resilience to drought and flooding, better quality produce, increase soil organic matter, and reduce weed pressure. Now, I'm always a thing about what's the mechanism? How is it working? Okay, it's like I was wondering. When I first heard about COVID, how is it killing us? How is it working? I need to know that because and then from that build on what the solution is, right? You always want to know that. So What they're doing in this soil food web approach is identify and quantify the soil microbiome components in the specific soil. So you've got fungi, bacteria, protozoa, and nematodes. So we're looking at that and we're like, okay, we don't like nematodes and bacteria, nobody wants that. So just like in our animal kingdom and that we see, there's a good balance. There's good nematodes and bad nematodes. There's good bacteria, bad bacteria. And so we've got to be able to identify those, okay, and quantify it. Is it healthy or not? How can we encourage the right mix? And when we do a lot of tillage, and then what we do is we increase a lot more of the bacteria population. When the soil is doesn't have a lot of pore spaces, it's not got a lot of oxygen, the soil air isn't good, it's not good for plants. They like more aerated areas, but also it encourages the bacteria that we don't like. Okay, so you're trying to get a more balanced fungi and bacteria component. Okay? And then what they do is they make a specific mix of compost that feeds the appropriate types of soil microbes using locally adapted microbes. I like that, locally adapted. Okay, so instead of I got to get a jug of something from Minnesota, if I'm in Oklahoma, can I help inoculate my own and make my own, compost and compost tea for that? And that's what they're saying in the soil food web. Now, on all of these, I'm like, okay, sounds good, because we always get sold, whether it's Pioneer Seed or Dow Chemical, or it's the next newest wonder amendment. Okay, when they say, okay, don't worry, trust me, it's magic. Now I get, okay, I'm a little suspicious. Okay, especially it's got a price tag attached to it. So we're trying to figure out, how well can we do this? What's it going to take? But what I am seeing positively is larger scale farmers shifting to this, where they're changing over their large spray equipment, getting rid of the chemicals, and they're spraying these organic amendments that they've brewed themselves, and then they add sometimes some starters and stuff. So you guys, anybody bake bread, yeast, and all that? It's similar to that. Okay. And then utilize management practices that encourage a healthy and balanced soil food web. So I'm almost near the end here. Okay. Here's some of the things: humic acid, biocomplete compost teas, and then biochar. Finally we got to biochar. Now, Dr. Ingham isn't real high on biochar because she says it's dead, but the benefit of biochar is it gets carbon into the soil. And if you've got to amend soil, biochar is going to help with one thing is help with that soil water retention, and also what else, Seth? With what else you got with biochar? What have you seen?
So water retention's big, but also like a third of it can house microbes.
Okay.
It's really big on that.
Yeah. And so one of the things we look at, we've got the soils we've got, so intensifying and taking care, really pushing and improving the soil biology in a smaller area is actually more economical than keep trying to expand. We've seen that even in Nebraska, where 1,000-acre farms, corn and cattle and soybeans, and then shifting down to like 400 acres, intensively getting the soil biology better, and then changing the marketing outlet. Okay.
Is compost tea a good way to fortify the biochar?
Yeah, so the thing with biochar is it's not got living organisms in it if you've done it right? So you need to supplement and bring back those organisms, that right balance of those four microbes. Yes.
I learned this from a friend of mine in Hawaii. It's called Sumagrow.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's living organisms, and so we only did on 2 acres, and then I put my alpaca compost tea mixed with it on 2 more acres.
Okay.
And they do satellite imagery, and you can really see the difference.
Okay.
It's more passive and it's doing some crapping. And except for when this latest 100+ weather hit. So we've seen a lot of benefit in putting it down.
Right, and Sumagrow is one brand. I think I've been one of their facilities down in Mississippi, And they're doing, but they're trying to find a specific formulation that matches most of the different areas. So, yeah. Yeah, and understand, the less moisture, the microbes, they're happy when it's warmer and when it's wetter. They slow down when it's, usually drier and when it's hotter, okay? I think one of the things, it's interesting, you can follow up on this plant health pyramid, advancing eco-ag, but one of the things I like it is I was able to look through, and I've got it in the PowerPoint for you. What are the things they're expecting? If you're really getting soil biology right, can you expect things for the plant to do and be healthier, right? Because there's a lot of interactions, complex interactions going on that, it's hard to manage. And what you're doing with this soil biology approach is, and adding compost, doing it the right way, aerobic composting, not anaerobic. But what you're trying to do is make the growing system more robust, more able to handle those different changes and buffer. You add fertilizer, that fertilizer may not change as quickly and can be more stable. So look through that, but some of the things about growing that healthy plant is going to increase your biomass, but it's also going to help it fight off disease. And I think that's one of the big things that I really want to see better research on, but promising that if you follow this approach, you can start seeing better, stronger plants. Okay, let me click through that. We go back to Kelly, okay, as we finish up here. Okay, so what are some possible next steps for Kelly and the Atkins farm? Is that, okay, she's got a farm stand, she's got things going, she's done soil testing from the beginning, found the right location and investing in the soil she's got. Okay, she's using plowing, raised beds, but no plastic. Okay, why? Because, the soil heat, that's what you told me, Kelly. Too hot at the end of the season there. Okay, and then it is a mess. See, I used to do a lot of plastic culture. Now I'm tired of all the plastic. In our Native American communities I'm working with, they don't want the plastic all through their fields. Okay, but and then large tiller and smaller tiller. Okay, herbicide when needed. So one of the things I'm trying to move away from tilling, the rototiller, but you've got to prepare that seed bed and I want a little. We use our BCS tractor a lot, not a Grillo, but a BCS. But we don't have a good no-till drill for the BCS, right? So some of the things, like on our plots at Langston, what I did this summer is I did 4 different clovers, all the walkways in clover. That was our underlay, and then we had each of our test plots. Because I want to create the little microclimate and always trying to get as much legumes into the system. So the tilling, what that does, you're getting that soil fluffed up, but then there can be a pan that develops underneath. And then as you hammer it, remember that picture before, those aggregates, it's all that hyphae that's pulled those clumps together has now been blasted apart, okay? So like a farmer in Sand Springs, Oklahoma, what he does is he does do beds, but then he'll use his microscope and he'll check his microbes, those 4 different ones, the fungi, bacteria, and the 2 others, protozoa and nematodes, and then he will then re-inoculate with a compost tea that he's made so that he's got that microbiology going again, okay? So that could be a next step. One of the cool things that Kelly's doing is winter planted wheat for off-season. So often about this time we've been all summer, we're exhausted, it's hot, and you're like, I'm done. Well, getting ready for that next season, if later on they plant winter wheat, and then you incorporate that in. So one more step, winter wheat is good, but what if you put in a mix, bought a little bit of Austrian winter pea, give you a legume, that'll then mix in another legume through the winter. So that's just a little bit of tweaking. And then Kelly has got to decide, is it worth the money? Just a little bit more for that seed, and is it worth it? So then, as far as grazon, will our soil microbiology take care of the grazon? Well, we've got to know for sure. We have no proof of that. Now, they say in general, oh yeah, it'll take care of toxicities. Well, it's got to, and the concept is that it's going to bind it up, but you got to know whether it'll actually get bound up and held or not. And so I'm not saying anything about that. Okay, grazon is a mess. We try to stay away. A lot of farmers in central area, local ag, have dealt with that same problem. So let me stop with that. I've got more, of course, on the PowerPoint. I could have gone another hour and you would have been slowly lulled to sleep. But you've got the PowerPoint. You can think through that and email me. Any other thoughts about this, Seth? Or I love the...
She touched on something that's
Yeah.
I did one year that really helped me, and that's with that hard pan on rototilling is the ripper.
Okay, yeah.
That ripper made all the difference in the world. On
Right.
not
Yeah.
making a big clay pot out of your soil.
Yeah. And Floyd told me a great story about, you always see vermiculture and all that. That's the worms, right? And what Brian was talking about. It's because worms are a key part of that soil food web. Okay, and so, 3 months changing your soil because and wood chips and such, with those, just letting those little worms do their job. Okay, and so don't that.
The 30s, the worm was called nature's plow.
Nature's plow, yeah. Okay, and then so what's next level things? Obviously there's much more to talk about, but you can do soil testing specifically for soil biologicals. Now, so one was mentioned in the back there. Got your name? Yeah, Thomas James was talking about it with USDA. Lee Haney was one of the original ones of the Haney soil test that looked at you trying to quantify that, the CO2 that's put off by the microbes in the soil. So that's one option. You could do a Haney soil test, and you can check with Thomas to ask more about that. OSU, they're not as crazy. That's Josh Lofton and Jason Warren. They're looking at cover crops and such. They've looked at, they've got a little bit different soil tests. So I want to compare that to the Haney later on. But there are tests you can do. That'd be next level. But you'll have to email me about it. So, okay. So Noble seems to transition all to
They use Haney.
Haney, okay. And they're regenerative ag all the way, yes. Okay, but their horticulture program seems to be closed down right now, I think.
So they're full regen on their cattle and all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for your time. But hopefully this will help you set up a little bit on if you want to learn more about it. There's a lot more to learn about this, and so. Well, my mom, Sulphur. I don't know where I'm from. I just travel around. No, I'm Mulhall, Oklahoma. North of Guthrie is where I'm from. So you come up and find me at Langston. We'll tour you around the horticulture center, and we do have a small farms conference every spring, and we'll have BCS tractors and like flail mowers. Some of the equipment that you could use at a smaller scale. So, okay, thank you.